Welcome to episode 2 of my StateTree tutorial series. In this episode, we'll be creating our own attack state, while also learning how to create custom StateTree tasks. So let's start this off. Let's jump back into our StateTree, and we're going to immediately add some more states. So first, what we're going to do is we're going to actually right-click root again, add a child state, and we're going to call this select behavior. We're going to drag this to the top, and then we're going to put the move and the weight as children on this state. And then we're going to click select behavior, right click, add a child state, and then we're going to add attack. Add that to the top. And now from here, we want to start setting up our attack state. We don't have an attack task yet. So in the top left, right here, we're going to click new task, StateTree task blueprint base is what we want to click. We want to create it off that. And then we're going to call this STT or StateTree task underscore attack. Now this opens up a blueprint, but whenever you're making a task, there's a couple things you always want to do first. So we want to go in here and override the enter state. And then a bit to the right of that, we want to say finish task. So this finish task node is very important because once this finish task is called, only then will transitions actually fire. So this is always really important to remember. So between these two, what we want to add is a play montage. We want to play our attack animations. So let's put a montage in here. Let's connect that up. And on completed, we want to finish with success because we have completed our animation. But now we need to get, of course, our skeletal mesh component. So let's create a variable. We're going to call this one character. And then we're going to link this to BP underscore enemy base object reference. And now there's something that you can do with StateTrees that's kind of special. Is we can make this public and then compile and then go back into our StateTree. And now if we add this task on our state, so STT attack, you can see that we have a character, but it's currently bound to none. And now you can manually link this to actor. And you can see again in our global actor, our context actor class is BP enemy base. But what we can also do is just go in here and in category on the right, you type context. And if we now make it no longer public and compile again, you'll see that it's still here, but it has this context tag and it's already linked to actor. So this says this is a context property. It's automatically connected to one of the context objects. And because it's a character, it's linked to our actor class. And like this, you can set up things in the task so that certain things don't have to be bound every single time. So now if I want to reuse our attack task in another state, for example, I don't have to bind this again. This is already set up to begin with. These are just small tricks that you don't have to use, but they can be very useful. So let's pull out our character and say get mesh and then go all the way to the bottom and then plug that in. Clean this up a little bit. And then our montage to play, we're going to make this another variable, but we're going to create a variable here and we're going to call this attacks. And this is going to be of type anim montage, object reference, and this is going to be an array. And then compile. And then we're going to add 3 attacks for all 3 of the attacks that we have. We have attack 1, we have attack 2, and we have attack 3. And now if we drag this out and say random array item and plug this into the montage, that now every time this task is called, it will play a random one of these 3 attacks. You can also make this weighted by just adding, for example, attack 1 2 more times. And you can set this up however you like it. So now attack 1 would be a lot more common to be chosen. For now, I'm just going to delete them. But you can play around with this however you like. Now, one last thing we can do in here is we can make our attacks public. And if we then compile and save, in our StateTree, we can actually see and change these. We can say, oh, in this one, I want to actually add one more. And it just gives a little bit extra control. But just like with the move and the weight, we need to set up the transitions, the path between these states to go properly. So what we want to do is we want to move to the character first. So we're going to run towards the player. Then we're going to attack. And then we're going to wait. So on attack, let's add a transition. And then on completed, we're going to go to wait. And in move, we're no longer going to go to wait, but we're going to go to attack. So now our AI, every single time, it will go in here. It will run to the player. It will attack once. And then it will wait for a second. It will run to the player. It will attack and so on. So let's see this in action. Let's go to the level. So let's play. And then you'll see that he immediately runs at us. Let's also open a debugger for a bit of extra information. He'll see he moves, attacks, and the animation is done. He waits for a second, he moves back, he attacks, he waits for a second. And you can also see that he's alternating between all the attacks randomly. Yeah, there we go. Real quick before we continue, let's make another folder. And we'll call this tasks. And we're just going to drag our SCT right in there. Normally in an AI, you create quite a couple tasks, so it's nice to keep these nice and organized. Let's jump back into our state tree for a moment, because there's one more thing I want to go over in this episode. On the attack state, you can see on the right that we have enter conditions. I'm just going to add one real quick. We're going to add a float compare, and you can see that this is an if statement. And this if statement just means that if it's false or true, depending on how you set it up, it can or can't enter this state. There's this transition, and he wants to go into the attack state. If it's not true with the enter condition, it can't do that. So let's set one up. Let's make it so that we can only do melee attacks once we are close enough to the player. So our left in is going to be on get player info, a distance to target, and then our right is going to be a parameter that we set up ourselves. So let's go into our state tree on the left, and let's actually make our first parameter. Let's click plus. Let's rename this to attack distance, and let's make this off type float. And now we can give it a value here, that our enemy's attack distance. So let's say this is about 300 units. And then we can go back on the right and just say parameters attack distance. And now you can see here as well, it says if get player info distance to target is equal to the attack distance, I can enter. But of course we don't want it to be equal. We want our distance to be smaller than the attack distance. So let's say less or equal. So now if we are closer to the player than our attack distance is, so we're in our attack distance, we can go in this state. Now that we have this extra state and our state tree is slowly getting a bit bigger, let's add a little bit of structure to it. So in the bottom left here, we have themes. And you can already see we have one default color. So let's add 3 more to these. And we're going to say we have move, we have attack, and we have waiting. Then we can give these a color. So move becomes a nice green. Attack will become a nice bright red. And waiting becomes, let's say, yellow. And now we can click on these states and give them their color. So move becomes move, attack becomes attack, and wait becomes wait. These themes will help your state tree to be a lot more overseeable and make sure that whenever new people open them up, it's just a little bit easier to read. That was it for this episode. In the next episode, we'll be looking at creating a idle moving state for the AI, where he uses an EQS to walk around, backing off from the player a little bit and creating some breathing space.